Welcome to TriggerPoint Tuesday. I'm Kyle Stull, Senior Master Trainer and Manager of Research and Program Design for TriggerPoint. In this video, we're going to cover three important aspects of the IT band. First, what is the IT band? Second, common misconceptions of the IT band. And third, how to best address the IT band. We're not born with an IT band. We're born with a layer of fascia that actually encapsulates the entire upper leg, known as the fascia lata. Now we have two muscles that blend into that fascia lata. In the front, we have the TFL. This starts from right behind the ASIS, that little bony point on the hip, runs down at an angle near the greater trochanter and blends into that fascia lata. On the back, we have the glutes. The superior fibers of the gluteus maximus run at an angle and also blend into the fascia lata. Now, over time, with crawling, walking, and running, whenever these muscles contract to stabilize our pelvis, it increases tension through that lateral aspect of the fascia lata. That, of course, thickens over time to support our movement, and that becomes what we know as the IT band. The IT band doesn't get tight. Now, it may feel tight, but since it's connective tissue, it doesn't shorten and lengthen the exact same way that a muscle does. So whenever we get that sensation of tightness, again, it doesn't indicate shortness of that particular part of the connective tissue. What happens, those muscles near the hip that blend into it, they oftentimes become dysfunctional, especially the TFL here in the front. So whenever we're seated, as most of us are throughout the day, the hips flexed, that TFL will adapt and shorten. Then whenever we stand and try to walk and run and go through hip extension, this shortened muscle doesn't just relax on its own, and it will start to tug on the IT band, and again, it may make it feel tight. Now, another part of that tightness, we have to consider what's under the IT band. So since it's on the lateral aspect of the thigh, we have the huge vastus lateralis that sits right underneath it. This is a muscle that's overworked in a lot of people. It could be overactive because maybe the glutes are underactive, and it can increase its size. It can hypertrophy over time, actually push into the IT band, and again, it makes it feel tight. Now, the second misconception we need to consider here is rolling the IT band. I see all the time people saying, oh, you're not supposed to address it, you're not supposed to roll it, that's the worst thing you can do. That's untrue. You can roll it as long as you understand that you're not going to change it. The literature on this is quite clear. You can't add length back into it. Again, it's not like a muscle. It doesn't stretch that easily. However, whenever we roll it, what we're trying to do is reduce the tension in that vastus lateralis underneath it. And of course, we're going to roll it in a very specific way. So that brings us to our third part. How do you best address it? Well, we're going to address those muscles we discussed, the TFL, here on the front of the hip, and the vastus lateralis, that lateral quad. So let's grab your foam roller and get started. We'll begin by focusing on the TFL. Now the TFL, as we said earlier, is right here behind the ASIS and below. So to find it, if you take your hand, put it right below your hip bone, you can do a little rotation of the hip because the TFL is a secondary rotator, and you can feel that TFL pop into your hand. We'll place the grid foam roller right on that muscle. Now, since it's a smaller area, whenever we get pressure directly on it, that's typically going to be the spot you need to be on. Whenever we move to the vastus lateralis, since this muscle is a little bit larger, we're going to divide it into two zones. Zone 1 is going to be from right above the knee to halfway up the quad, and then zone 2 is going to be from halfway up to right below the greater trochanter. We don't want to roll over the greater trochanter because that usually just hurts. Now, in each zone, we're going to perform a particular technique. So let's grab your grid, let's get in a position for the TFL. Once you've found your muscle, the TFL, you can place the grid directly on it. In most cases, you'll have to be at a slight angle here to get that direct compression onto it. Once you find it, if this is short and overactive on you, it's probably tender, and we just want to stop and hold pressure on that tenderness. We want to give this 20 to 30 seconds so that way the muscle can reduce tension, you can try to relax. So here you're just going to focus on breathing and again relaxing the muscle into it. After that first part, the next thing we're going to do is bring some blood and oxygen back into the area. Now the grid normally covers the entire muscle, but to do some rolling here, it's usually a very small roll up and down. And again, we're just applying some different compression onto the muscle. We're bringing some fluid and oxygen and stuff back into the area. We're going to go through that 4 times. For our next technique here, we're going to do a rotation. Again, since the TFL is a rotator, let's pin the muscle down, move that hip into rotation, and try to help mobilize it a little bit better. I'm rolling my right TFL. I'm going to put my knee on the ground. I'm going to bend my knee up to about 90, and then I'm going to use gravity to pull the weight of my foot out so my hip is internally rotating, and then pull it back up. We're going to do that 4 times. There's 1, and we're just adding motion back into the muscle here. There's 2, 3, and 4, and you can go through that again if you'd like to. Now to move to the vastus lateralis, I'm going to place my grid right above the knee on the lateral aspect. I'm going to bring my top leg here in the front for support. And again, I'm putting pressure directly on the IT band because my goal is to reduce the tension in that vastus lateralis under it. Let's first begin by doing a nice slow roll just through that first zone. If you find a tender spot, which you probably will, stop, hold, breathe. Again, we're going to give this about 30 seconds, and then we're going to move to 4 rolling motions. We're never going to roll fast. We're just going to do a nice, smooth rolling motion from the knee to halfway up the quad 4 times. There's 2. Try to relax the muscle. Again, continue breathing. There's 3. And 1 more is 4. Now for our second motion, I'm going to place the grid at the top of that zone. I'm going to do a pin and stretch. So here I'm going to use the hamstring to reciprocally inhibit that quadricep to go through by going through knee flexions. We're going to do this 4 times. This is a pin and stretch, so we're just pulling that muscle and that tissue through that compression, a lot like wringing out a towel. There's 2, 3, and 4. Whenever you're done with that, you can do that same thing up on the second zone, which is the top part. Once you release both the TFL and the quad, it may be beneficial to go into a kneeling hip flexor stretch or something to add a little bit more length into it, and then you can actually follow that up by activating some of those other muscles. So doing something to activate the core and something to activate the glutes will help reduce that tension or that tightness on the IT band over time. So thanks for rolling with us. Hope you enjoy, and we'll see you next time.